I find that when you do an inventory of where am I spending my money and it shows you what's important to you, it really helped me to kind of sit back and say, why am I buying all this stuff when I'm robbing from my future? If I'm living check to check, I'm robbing from my future joy.
Is skipping coffee and taking a sack lunch to work the key to financial freedom? Well, if you look at the battle between Ramit Sethi and Kevin O'Leary, it is certainly boiling down to that. Kevin O'Leary is on the side of stop buying your $5 coffee. And Ramit's like, come on, dude. That's not how you became a millionaire. Couple of fun facts before we jump in and invite Anna in this discussion. According to Dave Ramsey, you saved $22,995 over 30 years by skipping coffee. According to Susie Orman, kind of an unusual image I'm about to give you, but it is what it is. It is her quote. I almost can't say this, but I will. You're peeing $1 million down the drain by drinking or paying for coffee. So, Anna, is skipping coffee and taking a sack lunch to work the key to financial freedom?
Oh my goodness. I love this discussion. It makes me laugh. I think that there is some truth in what all four of these people are saying, but I think taken to extreme that it's either one or the other is not necessarily good. So I'd love to have this discussion, but can I ask you a question first?
Of course. That's why we're here.
Since I was not able to be at your amazing conference that I really wanted to
Oh,
attend, I
yeah.
want to just hear high level, how did it go? What was like the main takeaway or the most important question that you continued to be asked over and over again? Because maybe we can talk
Well,
about that today too.
oh yeah, let's do it. So the most important question I was asked repeatedly was either A, where is Anna Kelly? Or B,
Oh,
is Anna Kelly going to be at the next event, which we've already confirmed is President's Day weekend next year in Vegas. So this was the most common one.
oh, that's awesome. I really missed being there. So next year I'm there, Michael, and
We're
everybody else. I'd
confirmed.
love to meet you.
Wow. I was unsure you could confirm given volleyball and all of that. But no, you're
Well,
confirming right now or no?
I'll give you a 90% yes. How
Ah,
about that?
that's not confirmed.
I
That's
do have
okay.
kids. And so, one of
Yeah,
the things
I
that
know. I
I
know.
told you, I made a promise to my kiddos when I retired because I did miss a lot of stuff. I
Yeah,
would never miss an important event for anything real estate related again in their
I
lives. And
totally
so
agreed.
I
Totally
have
agreed.
to keep that commitment first. But if there's
Sure.
not a tournament that weekend, I will be there. I'll give you
Awesome.
that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so if I have to kind of summarize an event for somebody who wasn't there, first off, doing it at the Blind Center was a stroke of genius. It was off the strip, so you had to Uber or get a car there, which actually turned out to be genius because you couldn't escape, right? You couldn't go somewhere else. There wasn't attractions around it. The
Right.
Blind Center was just dialed in, exceeded all my expectations. When I secured the space, they didn't have purple tablecloths.
Mm-hmm.
I offered to buy them. They said no, thank you. Sure enough, we show up. I actually went to do a check on Friday. Purple tablecloths everywhere. Not only
Yes.
purple tablecloths, they had lights, purple lights, kind of lighting up different aspects of the room. So they went all
Awesome.
out on that. The team was awesome. Uh, it was a 12 out of 10 or a 15 out of 10 for the Blind Center. So if you ever do an event in Vegas and you don't consider the Blind Center, you're an idiot, frankly. They do have a cap, though, of about 350 people ish. So if you're going to do a monster event, probably wouldn't work there, but I couldn't recommend them better. Second, the speakers, all of them showed exactly what they were there for. They were passionate about their subject and
Yes.
which was awesome. Also, my preferred format of 25 minutes talk and 25 minutes questions from the audience worked wonderful. Really happy we did that. The video, right? I ended up spending almost 30 grand on various video aspects. The virtual looked like it worked well. I set up a 20K podcast room as a bonus for speakers so they could get together. I never used it. I never got in there because I was kind of the master of ceremonies. So a lot of speaker, I was hoping for 20 and we did 21 podcasts over 2 days in there.
Awesome.
So that was cool. Um, dinner, uh, and then lastly, and frankly, the only thing on it I couldn't control, and as a control freak, obviously that bothers me, but I couldn't control this, and it was the audience. Right? You and I've been to events where low key, not really
Yeah.
sharing, not really networking. Maybe there's some people trying to big dog it. There's this little entourage falling around people. There was none of that. All of the millionaires that came to speak were interacting. Nobody was trying to big time anybody. They were all gracious with their time. The audience was networking. We did 90-minute lunches and we had a 2-hour dinner the first day. There's only small tweaks, and I don't know if you've seen it. I surprised each speaker with a championship belt, like they give away in boxing and wrestling, and
Awesome.
that's made people smile, and it's all over social media. So,
That's
yeah, so
amazing.
there you go. It was a pretty cool
That's
event.
awesome. I had no doubt. I had no doubt. And just listening to
And, and
most of our listeners and their comments, most of you are amazing and ask really
yeah,
thoughtful questions. And it's why everybody wants to come back and be on the show every week and talk to you and
yeah,
help other people. So
yeah.
I'm excited for you and excited for next year.
Yeah,
So on this
yeah,
topic, oh,
one last thing. Just it popped into my head. When
yeah.
I sat back, and I've had a couple of days to decompress, the thing that made the audience special and why they just crushed it is the audience is full of doers. Now, you may not have a rental,
Yes.
but you're doing the work, right? You've got a buy box,
Yes.
you're networking, you're doing these things, you're getting uncomfortable. And then we brought in, Sean Cannell to talk about building a brand. We got Dan Bird for stocks. We had Bo for small business. It wasn't all real estate. There were these other components, and then we had uneducated economists kind of keynote Saturday night, the last presentation. So yeah, it was a great collection. But yeah, one of the things I could say about the event is it was full of doers and not pretenders, right? You
Yeah.
and I know the pretenders, right? They come up and ask questions or like not really anchored on anything. Nobody was doing
Right.
that. They were all doing. So that's my last thought. Let's get into the topic at hand. Ramit Sethi and Kevin O'Leary competing over Don't Buy Coffee.
Sure. It's so funny. I think you and I did a show a couple weeks back where we touched on this and our thoughts, and it's interesting how they're talking about what we've already been talking about a little bit, right? But I remember, so one of my most important pieces of advice that I give every young person that asks me, how do I get started in real estate, or what do I think about in my career, or how do I build wealth? The number one thing I say is you must live below your means while you work to expand your means, period. You can't have one without the other. In my experience, and in talking to many, many other millionaires that I know, and to seeing the lives of the 80% who are living check to check, who are never going to achieve that top 20% status. So when it comes to coffee, part of how I really learned this, Michael, is back when I was working at Bank of America in private banking and I was advising very wealthy clients. I realized I had this kind of aha moment that, I had a really good salary for my age. I was 23, 22, 23 years old when I started in private banking, and I was making really good money talking to older people about what to do with their wealth as I learned about it. But I learned it from my financial advisory training. They had been, a lot of them, already doing it because they were already wealthy. And so I did have this little bit of a imposter syndrome thing going on, I'm young and I'm telling these people that have money what to do with it. We were just giving them ideas of ways our banks could help them with different products. But my aha in talking to some of these people was that all of them had been all of them had been investing for a long time for the most part. We had a few younger people, but most of them were already, what I considered older at that time, like probably my age, your age and up, right? In our late 40s to 50s. And they had been investing in different things consistently over time. But what I realized is some of the millionaires, you would never know it. They weren't driving super fancy cars. They were in the top 10% of the wealth in all of our bank, but they might have lived in an older neighborhood since the 70s. At that time in the 90s, these were 20-year-old homes, very pretty and nice in a nice area, but not, the super McMansions that are in like River Oaks of Houston, where I pictured the really, really wealthy all living. And I realized that they were living below their means. And what it made me do, which is why it's so funny for this topic about coffee, is I looked at the fact that I was making, a pretty good income at that time, but I had a car payment, and every morning I got up, I went to the gym. Before I went to the gym, I went to Starbucks because I lived right by one, got my macchiato or my non-fat latte, which even back then, even over 25 years ago, they were about $4 a day, with the coffee and the tip. And so I got one in the morning, and every day then I worked out, I went to work. Every day after work, I drove by Starbucks before I went back to the gym and back home. And so I realized I was spending just about $8 a day on my 2 Starbucks coffees every day. In my mind, I didn't have time to make coffee, and I didn't want coffee. I wanted a good latte, right? And so I went to Starbucks and I spent $8 a day. And on paper, I realized that was about $56 a week. It was over $200 a month, about $2,400 every single year just on my lattes. And I thought, why am I living check to check? I'm telling wealthy people what to do with their money, but I was spending, the first time you get money and you're young, and, I was taught about investments, but not really about budgeting, which is a sad case for even even people that are, financial advisors aren't going through a budgeting class. You're just learning about what to do with money once you have it. So I had to get serious. And one of the people you just mentioned was Dave Ramsey. I heard about Dave Ramsey from my church, and I realized, wow, like I'm living, I'm using the credit cards and the debit cards and all this kind of stuff, and I was not budgeting. And so I thought, I need to get on a budget, and I need to really look at where's my money going. Because I, like many people, I didn't know where my money was going. I knew I had plenty. I had more than I had ever had, during college and growing up, but I didn't know where my money was going. I didn't budget. If I wanted an outfit, I bought an outfit. If I wanted a massage, I got a massage. If I wanted my nails done, I got my nails done, and I got my coffee. But as I did a budget and looked back at where have I spent all my money? And I think I went back 3 or 6 months. That aha for me was the biggest waster of my money, was getting coffee every single day. So I thought, let me just cut back to 1 Starbucks a day. I wasn't going to cut out coffee, Michael. I lived on coffee.
Yeah.
Worked full time, went to college full time. Like, I was addicted to coffee, and I'll never give up my coffee. So if I had to listen to someone say, Susie Orman, how much coffee am I peeing down the toilet? If I had to give up my coffee completely, I'd be pretty lethargic. I wouldn't have as much energy, and I wouldn't be happy. And part of life is enjoying what you want. So my first step, my baby step, was cut out 1 Starbucks a day and have 1 a day a few times a week. And that was a big, if I did that, I'd save $1,200 a year. Well, what could I do with $100 a month? Even if it was just putting $100 a month extra in my 401k, Michael, that was going to make a difference toward my future and building wealth. So anytime you can cut expenses of something that you don't find as an absolute need for enjoyment in your life, or you can make a substitution for that, such as make your coffee at home, every dollar you can cut in discretionary stuff, you can then put into building the wealth. And so I find it an interesting topic. Today, you and I mean, we talk about this on this show. I don't go around telling everybody in town I'm a millionaire. I get up, I pull my hair back, I walk out in sweats and not makeup sometimes. And, I don't drive a super fancy car, and nobody in town would necessarily know that I am a millionaire, but I buy really good coffee and I grind it at home. Now, I bought a really good coffee maker, right? But I do save a ton of money by having 2 really great cups of coffee that blow Starbucks out of the water every single day. And I go to Starbucks maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. And when I do, I get something yummy like a caramel macchiato. But I still think about living below my
Yeah.
means and having more and more discretionary that I can then invest to grow my means. So while Kevin O'Leary, no doubt, did not become a millionaire because he quit drinking coffee, he became a millionaire because he learned the power of living below your means so that you have more extra discretionary income so that you can invest it into your future, into growing your wealth. And everybody, no one can say that your goal isn't to become a millionaire. Everyone from the time you first talk to an advisor is, if you save this much money when you retire, you'll be a millionaire and then you can live on the 4%. So
Yep.
that's my long-winded way of saying there's truth. You got to cut out some expensive habits like expensive twice a day Starbucks coffee in order to grow your wealth. But that in of itself isn't going to grow you wealth. It's going to give you the baseline to have extra so that you can put that extra to work for growing wealth.
Love all of this. And I'll take the other side just because I read the article. So I have a fair understanding of, I think, what Ramit Sethi is going after. And I think his general opinion is, stop chasing pennies and maybe focus on the
Sure.
bigger things, right? Like your living expenses, like those bigger items. Um, which obviously was a key part of your story, right? That house hacking, that first fourplex, dumping the big house in Texas, living with family,
Yeah.
all those things that you've talked about. There are some monster things you can go after, right? Other than taxes, living expenses generally
Sure.
your biggest one. But I'm with you, right? One of the biggest things for us when we made the decision to start this journey at 30 was like you, I was spending every penny as fast as it came in. It was looking back, it's embarrassing. But
Yeah.
um, it was going after something small. It was building that muscle memory, right? I call
Yes.
them needs and wants. And ultimately, over the course of a couple of years, we cut out about 50% of our expenses. Now, some of that's because income went up a little. Um, we went from spending 100% of our income to 50, which just meant we
Right.
could go faster on the real estate.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
you've really got to go back and look at where the money is going. Maybe it's Starbucks, cut it in half. There was somebody I think I was talking to the other day saying their thing was getting their nails done. This was a young lady. And what she told me, I don't know what this stuff costs, but this is what she told me. She's only going to get manicures from now on, not pedicures.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm guessing that saves money. Guessing, but
Yes, significant. And that was another thing that I did, Michael, when I was looking at my budgeting. I used to get acrylic nails all the time. And
Mhm.
even back 20, and I'm saying 25 years ago, I've been married for 24 now, just this month. And looking back, it was during my single years, like a few years before that. So it's been at least 25, 30 years ago.
Mhm.
My acrylic nails, I think, were like 70 or $80 every single time I went. And you
I
have
had
to
no
go at
idea.
least every 2 weeks because they get filled
Woo.
in. So you're looking at $150, $200 a month with tips just to have your nails,
Mm.
done. So look at my nails today. I don't do acrylic nails.
Mm.
I paint them occasionally. Now I type so much I rarely do it, but I love now, granted,
Yeah.
I loved getting massages. I loved, getting my toes done. And when you're single, I will say this, when you're single, you have a little more opportunity to spend a little more discretionary money without it hurting you at that time. But
Mhm.
once you're married and you have kids and you have the expenses of that, you reprioritize what you need and what you want pretty quickly. And even to this day, I might go get a pedicure once a quarter, twice a year, just as a splurge. I paint my own toenails at home. Now, I don't
Mm.
think how much am I saving on that
Mhm.
pedicure, but I think the key here, two things that you just said that spark these thoughts. One is when you don't really know where it is you're blowing money till you make that budget. And once
Yes.
you do the budget, it becomes really eye-opening because yes, in the back of your mind, you kind of know, but when you do the budget and you look backwards at your receipts, your debit card statements, your credit card statements, because most people don't use very much cash, it's really easy to recreate where did I spend my money in the past. And it will blow your mind for some of you that are living check to check or you're not really budgeting to find out, oh my goodness, I spent $200 a month on the Starbucks, or oh my goodness, my cable bill alone is $200 a month, or, all these different subscriptions you might have that you never use. That's something that a lot of people see. You might not even realize it. You might go out to lunch every day for work and realize, man, I thought I was just buying here and there, but I added the tip, I grabbed the soft drink. How many times do you stop by the little convenience store to get a Monster drink or a soda or whatever it is? When you do that budget, it's a proof of what you have valued and what you have spent money on. And it's really important to get real with yourself, Michael, and say, what do I spend money on? A lot of us seek happiness in temporary blips of joy, in stuff, in
Right.
food. How do people become food addicted, right? Makes you feel good. And, one of my bad habits is Diet Dr. Pepper. By the grace of God, I haven't had one all year this year. It's one of my big wins.
Wow.
It's a
Look at
little thing,
you.
right?
Yeah,
Just a
yeah.
little thing, but it's like a major addiction for people. And so sometimes it's just shopping addiction. So I find that when you do an inventory of where am I spending my money, and it shows you what's important to you, it really helped me to kind of sit back and say, why am I buying all this stuff when I'm robbing from my future? If I'm living check to check, I'm robbing from my future joy and the things that I can live. Dave Ramsey, one of the things that I loved about him, and again, I don't agree with everything, but he's focusing specifically on the 80% of the population, Michael, that lives check to check, no matter how much they make. 80%
Yeah.
of the population, give or take a few percentage points over years consistently, they have lifestyle creep. So for the vast majority of people that aren't yet saving and investing, his principles are really good. But he said something that stuck with me. You got to be willing to live like no one else today so that you
Mhm.
can live like no one else tomorrow. And what that means is I've got to be able to cut back on some things that I think I need or society says that I need, that I really want today, in order to be able to save some money and invest in my future so that I can build the wealth, so that today I can live like no one else, being in the top 1 or 2%
Mm.
instead of in the bottom 80%. And so that really impacted me. So that's something that I got from Dave Ramsey, was budgeting, thinking about the future, and really thinking that if I'm splurging on everything I want that makes me feel good, I'm robbing from myself in the future. So it makes you get real with yourself and say, are my priorities and my daily habits of spending really aligned with what I say I value and what I say is important? So I think that's a really important question. And I do the same thing today, Michael, with my time. We've created financial freedom. They say you look at your checkbook or you look at how you spend your time. That shows what's really important to you. And sometimes we find that what we say is important to us is not how we're spending our time. So, we have to do an inventory of our money, do an inventory of our time. And if you're spending it all, you're not investing it all, you can't be a pretender that says, I want to grow wealthy and I want to be financially free. You have to know yourself,
Mm.
figure out what you're not doing right so that you can change those habits. And then you can start focusing on the big dollar things that, this gentleman was talking about, that was debating Kevin.
Yeah, one of the things that from the event is just kind of clicked in my head. Jason and Jen Pritchard kind of opened it up, and they're a couple where Jason quit his job, burned the boat, went on to become a wholesaler, flipper, all of that. Worked out well for them. But the first year and a half was tough, as you might imagine. And Jen was up there talking with Jason, kind of with receipts, right? She was a detective, right? She went back and found their text messages and their emails, kind of talking about how they were going to do this thing together. And what I would tell you folks, if you are in a relationship, it's got to be a team sport. One of you
Yes.
can't be making quote unquote the sacrifices and the other one is not paying attention. It's got to be a team sport. And Jason and
Yes.
Jen, shout out to both of you for kicking off our event. But would you agree?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things again. So I had started listening to Dave Ramsey loosely, but I had a lot of my friends at the bank were like, oh, he's talking to poor people. We're beyond that. We're in the
Mm.
investment world, da 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 da. I heard all that too. But when I got married, my church did a big, I think it was a 13-week course called Financial Peace University. And
Hmm.
it was
Hmm.
for couples. And the reason that the church did it is because they said 50% or more of divorces, couples say it happened over money. So if you're starting out, and we did it in our, I went to a really big church. We had a newlywed class for 1 year for those that were newlyweds. And they were like, one of the most important things for you to do is get on the same page about money. Because if you don't, if you view everything as this is your money and this is my money, or you can't spend without asking me, but I can spend without asking you, or your priorities aren't the same, 50% chance you're going to end up divorced. And so going through the class together at the beginning of my marriage with my husband was very helpful. And what we discovered was, wow, we already have the school loan. We already bought the house. We already have the car payment. Uh-oh, how do we now, reverse a 6 months marriage span of time, making poor decisions that we thought were the normal progression, right?
Yeah.
Even though I
Yeah.
was already in private banking, like I still wanted the house and the safe car, and we still had the school loan to help us get ahead in the future. So we had to start thinking about, okay, let's cut expenses that we don't really need so
Hmm.
that we can afford all the expenses and the debt and the payments that we already had. But we got on a budget. And at the time, we had $20 a week per person, Michael. That's all. This was 24 years ago.
$20 a week you could blow on anything you wanted.
Well, yeah, $20 a week per person.
Right,
And
per
then we had
person.
$50 for the weekend to go out together.
Oh,
So,
wow.
a cheap dinner, Cafe Express, a little Mexican food place, maybe a movie.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to, I'd spend mine on Starbucks. So I'd go
Oh,
four
yeah.
days at lunch and spend $4 a day, and there was my $20. So we could use that without any question
Hmm.
and each week. If we wanted to buy anything else beyond that, we needed to ask each other, like,
Mm.
where is this money going to come from? And what we
Right.
learned to do with budgeting, and this again was from Dave Ramsey, something good I got was you budget the month on paper before you spend it. So
Yes.
we're going, okay, here's the day that our paychecks come in. This amount is allocated to here. Only this amount goes into the checking account that we can spend together. And a certain amount goes into savings, and then everything else. And you realize there's no money left at the end,
Mm.
once
Yeah.
you have the house and the car payment and all of that. So getting on the same page early in our marriage, I think, was critical for us. But we also had to learn to give and take. And that's where, again, we went through what's a real need and what's a real want. And sometimes it's okay to keep those wants, but if you're going to take a real want, you're going to have to give up other wants for a
Hmm.
while. And another thing Dave, said was a mark of maturity is the ability to delay gratification. And that always stuck with me as well. So again, do I agree with everything Dave Ramsey says? No. But those core principles, Michael, I still think that today. Part of me being mature, even already having financial freedom, yes, we're millionaire status. Yes, we live below our means. I could easily have lifestyle creep come right back up and blow money on everything I want. And we've delayed, like if we do have a car payment, we usually do it 0% financing or whatever. But if we chose to have a car payment, we didn't buy another vehicle till that one was paid off. We don't go on a $50,000 vacation every single year. We wait till we buy an asset that produces enough cash flow that it pays for that trip we want to take or that spa we want to buy or whatever it might be. So I still think about, what do I really want that's worth me splurging on? Then what asset am I going to go buy to pay the cash flow to pay for that so that it becomes free rather than living, digging into my money that I need to live on day to day.
Yeah, the key to all of this, right? The key to getting rich, being a millionaire, wealthy, whatever you want to call that, is you have to build the muscle memory, the habit of creating
Yes.
what's called discretionary income. It's
Yes.
it's in the best analogy I have, and there are probably others. It's basically money that you have that you can light on fire and nothing changes. That's discretionary income.
Right.
And folks, if you're just getting started in your journey, or if you're in the middle and it's getting a little tight, I think we've kind of talked about there are things, needs versus want analysis, all of those things, the Starbucks habit, whatever that is for you, get on the same page. But the other thing you could do, and I think it's easier today than ever, is you can start growing your income, whether that's at work by adding skills or, if you guys don't know this, usually transferring jobs get you more than staying put. But you can also
Yes,
build stuff on the side easier than you've ever done, right? When
right.
I was 23 or 24, I was working 3 jobs because all I could do was sell my hours. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't an
Trading
entrepreneur.
time for dollars. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I worked 7 days a week, 3 different jobs, and because I had to pay off my school loans, right? That was a big deal to me.
Yeah.
But today, there's a lot more options. So I do think it's easiest to look at expenses first, but we shouldn't forget to look at, what could I do to increase income? And today there's more and more examples of even people just flipping stuff from garage sales. And these things, there's so many ways you can generate side hustle money or.
Absolutely. And you have to do both, right? You save the money so that you then have the money to invest in your future and to create more income, whether that be something totally passive, like you're putting it in stocks or you're buying, your house hacking a property, you put it as your first down payment. You build it up to buy other properties, whatever it might be. But the second piece of that, if you're not investing in things that produce cash flow, you're just putting it in stuff that you hope grows for the future, which is what most advisors are first telling you to do, like DCA, investing your 401k. When you're 65, you'll have the money. I realized also that's going to help me in the future, but I want to live a better lifestyle in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years while I have kids and grow wealth that's active, meaning I've got to create more income, more cash flow. So the habit of getting on the budget, want to create the habit to have the extra, to your point, that's the first part. The second part is, now what do I do with my time in order to create more income or more cash flow? And so what I really find very, very important, and I tell all of my coaching students to do this, is it's hard to get into the habit initially, but I time block religiously. Every single thing I need to do is time blocked on my phone from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed. My clock, my phone, I use Google Calendar, tells me go to bed, tells me wash my face, tells me take a shower, tells
Wow.
me work out, tells me meal prep, tells me massage or hot tub. Like, I need time. If I'm going to say that something's important to me, I have to budget my time with
I like it.
reminders that tell me that that's important to me. So your budget is your constant reminder with your finances that this is where I said I'm going to put my money. And if I do, and I'm diligent to create the habit to do what I say I'm going to do on paper, I'll have this much left over to invest. It's the same with our time. I cannot tell you how many people say, Michael, Anna, I don't have time to grow a side hustle. You just I'm not like you. I'm not diligent. I'm not determined. I've got too much on my plate. I don't have any. It's not that I don't have compassion for people. I do, but I don't let that be an excuse. I mean,
Right.
we've talked about this before, and again, this isn't to bring it all back about me, but I went to school full time while I worked full time. It was an 80-hour life, for a couple of years. Once I had kids, I worked full time, helped my husband build his business after work and at lunches and on weekends. And we bought rental property, and we did it at lunch and at night and on weekends, 70, 80 hours a week for 10 years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I didn't have time either, but you make time for what's important to you, just like you budget your money for what's important to you. So, we got rid of cable. Cable was one of those things, and people thought, oh, you're just living under a rock or trying to be sheltered. It was like, no, I don't want to sit and waste my time watching all of the HGTV and design shows that I like, or the History Channel or Fox News or CNNBC or whatever it was, because I knew I could sit there for hours at the end of a hard day where I was exhausted. I didn't want to think. I didn't want to work physically. I was spent. But if I had that cable, number one, it would cost me, even back then, $200 a month. But
Right.
number two, it would take 2, 3, 4, 5 hours every few days of my time that I thought I didn't have, that I could be building extra income from. So those choices that you make, when you really look at your time and go, where am I going to have time to eat? Where am I going to have time to work out? Where am I going to have time to create a side hustle or learn a skill or work toward the business I want to build? You know, we did that for a year, a couple hours a night. We planned, let's start this chiropractic business. And then it was like, okay, let's start building. So we had to say, how much is this? If we want to create a real estate portfolio, we want to create a business, how much time every day is it going to take for us to work on that? In order to get the results that we want by X date. And so you figure that out. You go, okay, by year 5, just like if you're going to work out, Michael, you want to lose weight. If I want to lose 20 pounds, what are the things I'm going to have to do to lose 20 pounds? I better stop eating fast food. I probably should cut out my Diet Dr. Pepper habit. I've got to start working out. I mean, those things, you got to meal prep. You got to go to the grocery store to buy healthier stuff. Like, these are all things that take time. So if I want that result, then I need to put on my calendar a reminder for me, because otherwise I'm not going to remember all the things I'm doing. Saturday, my calendar says grocery shop and meal prep. And I spend a couple hours every Saturday. I don't go throughout the week unless I have to. And I've got my list and I go, or I order it online and we have it delivered, whatever we do. But you have to inventory your time, then find time by removing things that you don't need to continue to waste time doing, so that you make time to invest in yourself and your future growth. And so to me, both of those things have if I want more time or money, then I have to have the maturity to delay some satisfaction today by spending time going to the movies or spending money on my Starbucks, and do the things that I still really want to do with my time that I'm not willing to give up, and then sacrifice 3 or 4 other things that you can give up for a while to create the time to create income through income generating activities.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's really important that we haven't touched on yet in this discussion is if you want to move the needle financially. All right, we talked about cutting out little expenses, big expenses, increasing revenue. I I have this saying, see how this hits you. You've got to fire some of your friends. Some of your friends suck, right? They are the reasons you go out drinking, Friday nights, or you feel like you have to buy this or that. Some of your friends don't have your best interest in mind. What do you think of that?
Right. Yeah. That's a really hard one, Michael. It really is.
For
There is
me.
a similar, yeah. Well, there's a similar statement that I didn't hear until, the last couple of years by Jim Rohn, that you're the product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, so
Yeah.
your network is your net worth. That's another kind of phrase. And essentially, if you want to be thinking bigger and you want to be doing bigger and you want to be living like, unconventionally, 80% of the population is going to say, you're crazy for thinking you can cut your coffee and make wealth, right? You got to be with the people that are going to say, coffee, but what are you doing during that coffee time to create more money? So you need a network that can challenge you to think bigger, do better than what most people are getting. You've got to live an unordinary life if you want unordinary results. If you're living like everybody else, you're going to have the results like everybody else. So there is truth to that. And you'll find that the further you change the way you're living, like, I'm not going to go to the bar with you because I need to go work on a flip house and then I need to go to church the next morning. Like, some of those friendships are just going to die out because they're going to feel like, oh, I don't have anything in common with you anymore. It's also hard, though. I think if I could do one thing differently going back, and there's lots of things we do differently as we learn, sometimes because I was so driven and I wanted a different life, than what I grew up with, and I wanted a better life for my kids, I sometimes sacrificed relationships that I should have spent more time on because I was so laser focused on my time that I didn't leave enough buffer in my schedule to enjoy relationships. And so I think that I would just say that that's just something that kind of hit me. I have a friendship that we've been friends since high school. And I felt bad. We kind of lost touch over the years. We were super, super close. A couple of my friends, from probably three of them, high school, college, through new babies, then friends that were really close, during our early marriage years and early kids. And we've kind of kept track through Facebook, but things have happened in our lives that it's like, man, I wish I had spent more time with them, or I wish I was there for them. Right. And I
Yeah.
wasn't, not because I wasn't trying to be a good friend, or because I'm like, they're not good for me anymore. They're going to drag me down. But I just got so busy with trying to take care of my family and do what we needed to do, that I left very little buffer to continue developing really good friendships while I let the others go. So yes, if there's people that are totally dragging you down, they're wanting to just party all the time, or go to games and watch TV or movies all the time, and you just don't have time for that, then you've got to put some distance there and say, I've got to choose me over that. But just make sure you do build in time for relationships, and you maintain those relationships that are most important to you.
Yeah, not my thing. I have a very, very small network.
I'm going to sound sexist, but Michael, you're so a guy. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I will say this again, every person's different. We're not all the same, but
Yeah.
generally, I have found that many men are fine with not having very many friends.
Mhm.
They're just kind of like, hey, we'll see each other when we see each other. When we do, we
Yeah.
chit chat, whatever. Women kind of need those relationships
Okay.
a little more, I think, than guys do. So there's
Yeah.
probably part of that, as well. But as you get older and you get wealthier, quite frankly, some of your older friends might get jealous.
Hmm.
And some of the newer friends might only want to be your friends because of what they think you can do for them. So
Oh, amen to
there's
that.
there
Yeah.
there is, and I found that the latter is really important. You go to all
Yeah.
kind of events and everybody wants to be your friend. Which is fine. I mean, we want to inspire people, right? But that doesn't mean that we can have the time, to bring you into our very close
Mhm.
network. So it's important, I think, for me to have some close friendships that love me and know me for me, not they don't look at me any differently because I have money. They don't look at me any differently because I have success. Like, they've known me from when I've had nothing, and they're
Mhm.
still there for me today and can give me real, truthful feedback, constructive criticism and support in a way that people that haven't known me for many, many, many years may not be able to. So from a female perspective, I find value in
Sure.
long-term relationships.
Oh.
And I do see so many people in this 10X world that burn all the ships, including those relationship ships, that end up divorced.
Mhm.
Most of my friends, in the real estate wealth journey have been divorced over the last few years. So that's sad to
Mm.
see.
Yeah.
Because their time is consumed with building more, building more, building more. And
Yeah. You know what?
it's
I'd love,
an easy trap to fall into.
you know, that's bullshit. It's not an easy trap to fall into. It's a choice.
Well, that's okay. Yes,
It's not, it's an absolute choice. It's ego
it is.
driven. I mean, because again, you know my story, right? We got to some number, which was more than enough, and I sat down.
Yeah.
I've been sitting down for 5 or 6 years, just doing little onesie twosie things as something
Yeah.
came across. It's a
Yeah.
freaking choice. It's ego driven. It's got to be a billionaire, all of that.
Yes.
And you know what? When you got enough, and that was, I mean,
Yeah.
Coach
And
Carson.
sometimes, Michael, it's a choice, but sometimes
Hmm.
it's not that they're making a conscious choice that I'm going to destroy my marriage by doing this, but they're
Oh,
so
I'm not saying
maybe
that.
so prideful and so caught up that they just don't think it's going to have as much of an impact as it does, because they haven't done an inventory of their time.
They lost
And if I
priorities.
do this, how's it going to impact this? Right. And so, just like you, I mean, since I retired from AIG, obviously I've done a ton, but I
Mhm.
went from working 80 hours a week for a decade to 25 to 35. So it felt pretty like, what
Yeah.
am I doing with my time? Like, I'm not working very much. The last 2 years, things have really slowed in real estate.
Yeah.
So I've done a
Yeah.
lot less deals and have a lot more discretionary time. My husband and I are doing a lot more things together in the middle of the day. We're going and
Yep.
having lunch
Yeah.
but I've had to prioritize my time and time block my schedule. On my time blocking, Michael, I have a date with each one of my children every week. So every Saturday or Sunday, I'm going to
That is
spend time with
awesome.
one of my kids.
That is something I wish, like, I wouldn't go back and do the whole friends thing. We already talked about
Yeah.
that. But if I could go have a daddy-daughter date night, like even twice a month,
Yeah.
that is genius. Folks, if you
It
guys especially, if you're not doing that with your daughters and your sons, but your daughters, I
Yeah,
have a daughter, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss it. So
and it
I love
goes
that
so
one.
fast. It goes so fast, and everyone tells us that, but in the
Oh,
day-to-day of decades of,
so
trying to build a
fast.
life, it seems slow at the time, but, I've got one in college and one about to be in college, and it's like, "Oh, I just want that time back." So, you learn and, we've always spent time with our kids, but I make it now it's on my calendar. It can't be like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
great
well,
idea.
I need to go out with," and we do the same with my husband. So it's like, okay, we have a date on the calendar and we try to honor it. And instead of deleting it if we get busy, we move it on the calendar.
Right.
So it still needs to happen that week or within a week and a half if the kids have activities or whatever. But prioritize your relationships, put it on your time blocking because if you have happy, healthy relationships, you're going to go after your businesses in a happier, healthy way, and you're going to make better decisions about how are these investments, how's this business going to impact my family,
Yeah.
because you're truly prioritizing what you say is important, not only in your mind, but with your time.
Amen to that. Again, one of the things that we've said over the years is real estate's hard. You're going to have bad days. We still have bad days. But if your
Yeah.
relationship's in a bad space and you have bad days, it could get ugly fast.
Oh, yeah. Because stressful people are
Oh,
short.
yep.
People that aren't sleeping well are short.
Oh,
I was just reading a sleep study, new study that came out on sleep and how to prioritize the best part of the most restful sleep, the things that I stay up listening to and whatnot. But it really talked about how really psychologically damaging it is to not get enough sleep, like how much increase in depression and anxiety, for example. And so when you're constantly stressed out and you're working 80 hours a week all the time, you're not going to be at your best as a person, relationships, business decisions, because number one, you're just more stressed out. And that it's never good to make decisions when you're under stress or under pressure. But you also don't have as strong of a memory and you can't make decisions as quickly when you're sleep deprived. Down 20 to 25% just by sleeping 6 hours instead of 8 hours a night. So, you want to be at your best and you want to be at your happiest and most joyful and most clear minded. You've got to get sleep and you got to, be happy and
right.
have good relationships. So, it's really, really important. But, again, I think that um, if you want to be able to do anything well in life and grow wealth, it's all a series of choices and yes and no's, right? You should be
Oh, yep.
saying no to most things and yes to the couple of things, the few things that are going to really move the needle. So to the point of like not jumping over, pennies or collecting pennies. There's another phrase that says don't jump over dollars to collect pennies, right? So you don't want to do a whole bunch of little deals that are going to get you pennies when you can spend that same time going after a big deal that gets you big dollars. So
Hmm.
the same, goes with our time and with our budgeting. It's not like you're depriving yourself by saying no to certain things. You're making room for the best things. And so budget your time and budget your money so that you can make time and use money to grow your wealth and to do it in a healthy way that's going to make you big progress with that time that you are spending and the money that you are investing in growing your wealth.
Yeah. Well, let's take a complete right turn. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the economy. I'm starting to see some cracks, right? We got retail sales down pretty significantly. I think the jobs numbers underneath the kind of rumblings aren't nearly as strong as kind of the top
I
line.
told you so.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You can say it again one more time.
I'm just teasing.
It's fine. I can take it. I can take. Hey, when you're right, you're right, and Anna's usually right, so I'm good with that.
I'm just
Yeah,
early.
yeah, you're just early. So what are you seeing as we kind of get to the end of February? It is interesting to see that rate spiked. With the hot CPI, hot PPI. Again, I think they're hot in the moment. I still see some downward pressure, but who knows? I mean, maybe they'll go back up. What do you see in inflation, jobs, economy as we kind of wrap up this wonderful episode?
Yeah, I still think more of the same. I think we're heading toward very recessionary conditions. The leading indicators, all of them are, pointing downward and negative, other
Negative for
than
21 months in a row. I
yes,
got that on
yes.
Tuesday. 21 months in a row. So wow.
It's been a while. And this is where, and I'm not saying this, but 90% of our comments are 95 or 98 are amazing, right? And there are people that are going to say, oh, Michael and Anna, there you are, you're doomers. You've been calling for a recession for 2 years, right?
No.
And here's the reality. The data has been turning negative for 2 years. So you just mentioned the leading indicators, 21 months. That's almost
Yeah,
2 years.
almost.
The issue is that our economy has been resilient by a couple of things. One, significant fiscal spending. So we still have a
Yeah.
ton of money that's been put in businesses and large businesses, small businesses. Investors made a ton of money. Individuals who got PPP money, EIDL money. There's been so much money in the system that has kind of delayed
Mhm.
all of this because we've continued to spend with this hopium that things are really not, they're gonna, we're not gonna have that hard landing, right? It's gonna be soft. And so the lag effects of easy monetary spending have taken way longer than I thought that they would, and that most economists, thought that they would as well. So how long does it take to finally, run off the cliff? We don't know. It always seems before a big recession, like everything it's okay, it's kind of hairy, then everybody's like, okay, soft landing, and then suddenly, and I think
Right.
we're getting close to that suddenly where we
Okay.
still have a recession. Now, here's the thing. You see a headline, and you and I've talked about this before, all of a sudden CPI cooked up. Oh no.
Yeah.
um all of a sudden certain areas of GDP are high as a total, even though 80% of what makes up GDP, I'm making up 80%, but a large percentage is negative. You have that one or two things like government spending,
Yeah.
government jobs that actually push you to a positive GDP. Or you have a little bit of this almost like a rolling recession where you have all these industries going downward recessionary, but you have one that has like this comeback and it kind of carries the market. And
Yeah.
so I've been saying for 2 years, as long as I've been saying I think we're heading for recession, I've also been saying I think we're going to have something more akin to stagflation
You
than
have.
high inflation or recession. I think it's going to be a little bit of a combination of those things. And
Yeah.
people think that you can't have both at the same time. They say, well, if there's a strong GDP report or a strong jobs report or a strong
Mhm.
inflation number, it's soft landing, holding off recession. That is very short-sighted, and it shows a
Yeah.
lack of understanding. You can
Agreed.
have a recessionary condition,
Mhm.
still have some inflation, be in this battle that's very stagflationary, low growth at the same time as higher than desired inflation. And
Mhm.
I think that over the long term, we're probably going to have several years of more of a stagflationary type environment. Even though I do think we're going to finally have that recession we've been calling for and expecting, I
Sure.
think it's coming. I think the data is just proving that more and more. Um, but again, an average recession lasts 8 to 10 months.
Yep.
Sometimes,
Exactly.
a really bad one, 18 months, but that's a short term. We get the recession, we have the clean out, and then it's a slow recovery and kind of a stagnating economy for a couple of years. That's
Yeah.
just what I see
I agree.
in the data.
Anna, you're amazing. You're 90% committed to the 2025 event. He tried to say 3 times.
Yes.
We'll check in next year and confirm that. But you are amazing. You were asked for. You are appreciated. Where can people find
Yeah.
you?
Great. You can find me here every week. You can find me on social at Anna Kelly, REI Mom, and my website for real estate coaching and consulting and deal review help at AnnaKellyInvesting.com.
Awesome.